Hello there, and welcome to Play the Game with Steve. Ultimate deck building guide for Phoenix, an understanding the mechanics video series. All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at Phoenix, her stats, her different abilities, her mechanics that are unique, and we're going to take a look at all the synergies that we can find within her own personal hero kit. And then what we are going to do is we're going to take a look between the different aspects and some of the best cards that synergize the best with her unique play style. Now, of course, these are just suggestions and you can kind of build however you want, but this is just going to be a guide that can kind of help you when you are in this deck building process. Before we continue, I want to give a big shout out to my channel members. And if you would like to become a channel member and help support me, you can go on the link that is in the description and you can become a channel member. And that's going to help me support and all the work that I do. Or else you can just subscribe and that also helps the channel a lot. And just put a like on the video and that helps with the algorithm. Now, without further ado, you're probably noticing like, hey, how come your Phoenix is different than my Phoenix? Mine kind of looks like this, but not full art. Well, these are the organized play kit promos. And if you follow me and you watch some of the live play videos, I often do giveaways of these nice promo packs. And then you can see with the boards and stuff like that. So there's still tons of stuff to give away. So make sure that you follow me and you come on the live chats and participate when we do the live videos. And then you might be going away with something. Last Saturday, we gave away a Storm Hero Pack to Mr. Luther Bob, which is super happy about it. So there you go. So yeah, so if you want some of these chances to win these organized play kits and packs, you can just follow me and just make sure that you watch the videos. All right, now, without further ado, let's dive into Phoenix Jean Grey. Well, first of all, Phoenix is on her alter ego side, is a mutant with the psionic trait. Now, that is a great trait, and that is one of the reasons why this video is late, is because I didn't really want to do the mechanics video and the deck building strategies until more of the psionic characters were released. And now we got a few more, so now it makes a lot more sense to be doing one of these videos. All right, so she also has a hand size of 6 and 9 health. She has a recovery of 3 and a setup ability to put your Phoenix Force upgrade into play. Restrained side face up, and then place 4 power counters on it. She also has a response. After you make a basic recovery, you can place a power counter on the Phoenix Force. Okay, so again, very thematic. Phoenix Force, we know that in the comics, she becomes the entity, the celestial entity known as the Phoenix. So I like that the game is really taking this into consideration. On her mutant side, all right, she is a psionic and X-Men. She now has a hand size of 5, and she has 3 thwart. Man, that is so high. 1 attack and 2 defense. She also has the psionic bond hero resource. You can remove a power counter from the Phoenix Force to generate a wild resource once per phase. So she already starts with a hand size of +1 because of this Phoenix Force ability. So she is also psionic on the hero form. So just looking at those stats right now, you can already see that, man, justice is going to be no problem. So when you're thinking about that, you might also be like, oh, well, if she can already thwart, maybe I'll focus on attack. But we're going to dive into that a little bit later. Let's take a look at that Phoenix Force card, because that is one of the cards. Phoenix Force is her permanent upgrade. Now, remember, permanent cards come into play at the setup. Okay, so it comes into play and you just put it into play. You do not shuffle these permanent cards in the deck. There was a big debate, but now that has been resolved. Permanents do not go into your deck and do not shuffle them. All right, and you just put them into play when it tells you to do the setup thing. All right, you gain the restrained trait. So that's always interesting. We just did a video on Rogue. So if Rogue wants to be restrained, you can, match her up with her. Forced response. After the last power counter is removed here, flip this card. All right, so let's see what happens when you flip this. She becomes the Phoenix Force Unleashed. It is also permanent, so it cannot be discarded. You gain the Unleashed trait. Phoenix loses 2 thwart, but gains +2 attack. So that's very interesting that you can switch it like that. And a forced response after a power counter is placed here. If there are 4 or more power counters here, you can flip this card back. So this is very, very interesting how you can play off these power counters. You can, exhaust them all, go into attack mode right away if you want to be super aggressive. Or you can, calm yourself, stay calm, and then use these sparingly. And then when it's time to go for the kill, then just go for the flip. So that I love this about this character is that you can kind of choose and decide the tempo that you want to put to the battle. All right, let's take a look at her signature cards before we get any further. All right, she has a few upgrades and 1 support card. So her support card is called the White Hot Room. It's a 2-cost upgrade, location, and the Phoenix keyword. Now, the Phoenix trait, interestingly enough, Phoenix herself does not have the Phoenix trait. So if you were thinking about kind of cheating cards in with the team building exercise, this does not work because it's not, she doesn't have the Phoenix trait. All right, so in alter ego action, you can exhaust the White Hot Room. You can place a power counter on Phoenix Force, or you can heal 2 damage from Jean Grey, which is very, very versatile. I really appreciate this card. This is a good priority card, especially if you're going to be taking some damage because you want to use your basic thwart. So you're probably going to want to take some hits and then just kind of, heal up with this. So that is good. So you can kind of recover for 5 in 1 turn. So your life points are kind of like a resource. So that is a very good. The next upgrade that is awesome is called the Phoenix Suit. It also costs 2. Gains the aerial trait. We all know how aerial is becoming more and more the best or the most awesome. While you have the restrained trait, you gain steady. While you have the unleashed trait, you gain retaliate 1. So again, we can kind of build off of these traits and to see if we want to be restrained or if we want to be unleashed. So again, we can kind of play with this in our deck building process. What do we want to focus on? So I really enjoy this card. Another high priority card. Telekinetic Shield. This is another 2-cost upgrade. It is a psionic. So this one you can kind of cheat because it shares the trait with your character. Attached to a friendly character. So you can give this to other people. Forced interrupt. When attached character would take any amount of damage from an enemy attack, place that damage here instead. Then if there are at least 5 or damage here, you discard Telekinetic Shield. Now, which is awesome about this card is, let's say you take 4 damage from a hit, and then the villain is attacking you with double overkill, and he's got like 5 extra boost cards. I'm looking at you, Venom, from the and he's got like 10 boost cards, and you're just like, oh well, okay, I'll just Telekinetic Shield the attack, and even if he attacks you for 50, it don't matter because it all goes here, and then if there is 10 or more, 5 or more, you have to discard this card. All right. So when attached character would take damage from an enemy attack. So one thing also to clarify, if the boost card says deal 1 damage, that is not considered from an attack. So you would still take the damage here and you wouldn't lose the Telekinetic Shield for that reason. So very important. Again, I'm thinking of Venom, that cards that can kind of just deal 1 damage to every character. You're still safe. So that card still works. That's why it's a very good priority card. All right, then we got some really interesting ones. The first one is Mental Paralysis. This is probably my least favorite card. It is a 2-cost upgrade, psionic, again, hero form only, and attached to a non-elite minion. This is probably why it's very, situational. So it's probably one of the reasons why I don't play it. It says attached minion cannot activate. So it's just saying enough, like if you have and it's a non-elite. So most of the time, a non-elite minion is not going to be that bad. And spending 2 resources plus this card, so an additional 3 resources to just put hey, don't do anything. For me, it's not the best card. Force response, after you flip to alter ego, discard. And so attached to the minions. So again, there could be some really big non-elite minions. I'm thinking of the Sentinels. There's a few Sentinels that are really, really big, especially in the Master Mole. I think the one with 8 health, 9 health, and it's really big. So that one is a problem. All right, then we have another upgrade, which is Rise from the Ashes. It is a Phoenix card. Again, you cannot share that. It's a 3 cost. It's an interrupt. When you would be defeated, remove this card from the game. Ooh, ready your identity and restore it to its printed hit points value instead. So even if you have, let's say, a symbiote suit or an endurance, your printed hit points is still 9. Remove each power counter from Phoenix Force, which means you go to your Unleashed side. So again, this is a good safety net between the telekinetic shield and the Rise from the Ash. She's a very hard character to take out. And then finally, Mind Control, probably one of my favorite upgrades. Condition Psionic, attached to a non-elite minion. Again, it's very good in 1 or 2 situations, but I really enjoy it when it does pay off. It's amazing. I actually love this with the Masters of Evil, like Tiger Shark and all that, those guys. So it's pretty fun. All right, it says here, take control of attached minion and treat it as a controlled ally with a blank text box. Its thwart is equal to its printed scheme, and it takes 1 consequential damage after it thwarts or attacks. All right, so that's really fun. Again, if you're thinking of Tiger Shark, who has 6 hit points, he won't get his force response anymore because his text bank is blank. So also, if there's any attachments that refer to the minion subtype, they would not take effect. They won't get discarded, but they won't work. I'm thinking of, again, situations with the Zola minions that would have like 5 or 6 attachments on them. So all of those would not work if you mind control the minion. So there you go. So that's all her attachments and stuff like that. So it's good. All right, let's take a look at the bread and butter of her cards. Her Phoenix cards, the Phoenix Firebird. All right, so these two, she's got 2 copies of this, and the hero action to choose. You can remove a power counter from Phoenix Force, and you can ready yourself. So not bad. So again, if you're trying to get Unleashed, you can pay with a Phoenix counter and then remove a Phoenix counter. So technically removing 2 of them in 1 turn, which is pretty good. So you get to go Unleashed really fast to ready your Phoenix, or you can place 2 power counters on the Phoenix Force. So again, versatility in cards is what I enjoy. All right, then we have the Psychic Blast. Now all these cards, all her events are nice when she's Unleashed, but become extremely more powerful when she is, when she's restrained, they're tame, and when she's Unleashed, they just become so much better. So the Psychic Blast is a 2-cost event, Psionic again, hero action, deal 4 damage to the villain. If you have the Unleashed trait, deal 4 damage to each minion engaged with you. So that is a very, very, very powerful card. I think we remember War Machine's, I forget what it's called there, like Scorched Earth, that just deals 3 to everything. This is a 2-cost card for 4 for everything. It's stronger and cheaper, so it's amazing. Very, very good card. Then we have, again, a great card here for control. Telepathic Treachery, Psionic Thwart, hero action. You can remove 4 threat from a scheme, and if you have the Unleashed trait, you stun and confuse the enemy. That is very, very powerful. 2 for 4 threat remove. When was the last time we saw threat removal and a status? We saw it for 1 with the Doctor Strange card, Images of Icon. And then the closest thing that looks for this is Black Widows. Remove 4 threat and then and confuse. But this one stuns and confuse for 1 cheaper. Again, these cards are so strong, but she has to become Unleashed. And then finally, the Telekinetic Attack, a Psionic attack that costs 3. It is deal 7 damage to an enemy, and if you have the Unleashed trait, this attack deals 2 additional damage and gains Overkill. So another boost. So 3 for 9 damage and Overkill. Again, think about Thor. It's 3 for 8 damage and Overkill, and you have to bring back your hammer. So again, we're looking at these cards and like, ooh, just a little bit more powerful. So very good set of cards. And then finally, she has her hubby ally, Mr. Cyclops, who's a 3-cost ally with 3 health points. 2 thwart, 2 attack. He is an X-Men and has a response. After he enters play, you place 2 power counters on Phoenix Force and forced interrupt. When he leaves play, you remove 2 power counters from the Phoenix Force. So again, if he's there, he can calm her down. And then when he's gone, she becomes furious. So you can kind of play off of that for these guys. All right, so that is it for her hero kit. Now let's go take a look at her nemesis cards. Because again, Shadows of the Past is such a classic. Burning Hunger, Obligation, let's go. It says, give to the Jean Grey player, when revealed, if you have the Unleashed trait, search the encounter deck, discard pile, and set aside area for Dark Phoenix. Reveal her, then remove Burning Hunger from the game. And if you have the Restrained trait, remove 1 power counter from Phoenix Force and discard Gain Surge. Discard. So this is one of those cards that you kind of want to see as a boost. And I think this is one of the things that when players started playing her, were afraid of the Dark Phoenix. And we'll see why in a second, because Dark Phoenix is no joke. So I think that is one of the cards you kind of want to avoid if you can. When you see it go by, you're like, whew, okay, Dark Phoenix is not coming out this turn. I can go Unleashed and I'm safe unless I get Shadows of the Past. But if you're like me and you see Shadows of the Past, Dark Phoenix will arise. Dark Phoenix is a 2 scheme, 2 attack, cosmic entity, and an elite with 12 hit points. That is huge. That is a big booty. This is basically another villain. If on standard, it's another villain. She is steady, toughness, and villainous. So it's 12 plus a tough. And then what Dark Phoenix schemes? So 2 scheme with it. She would place threat on consumes the world if able. All right, and then when revealed, you search the encounter deck and discard pile and set aside area for consume the world and reveal it. So what is consume the world? It is the side scheme that comes out. It is a permanent side scheme, so you cannot defeat it and you cannot do anything with it. You can just bring it down. So permanent, while there is no threat here, this scheme loses the amplify icon. And a force response after threat is placed here. If there are at least 12 threat here, the players lose the game. So I think this was the first character in Champions. I don't know if there's another. I don't think there's another yet. Or maybe I'm confused. Maybe I'm thinking of like other stuff there. But I think for now, that's the only character that has a loss condition win her nemesis kit. So that's always interesting. So consumes the world. And then she has 3 copies of Fiery Rage. It is a peril card, so other players can't help you. When revealed, if Dark Phoenix is in play, she activates against you. And if Dark Phoenix is not in play, you place 1 threat on Consume the World, and the card gains Surge. So obviously, all these cards on her kit, there's a lot of surging. They kind of build it so the Dark Phoenix is going to pop out and she's going to come and burn the world. So you're going to have to deal with that. And it's one of the costs of being the Phoenix entity. So that's it for her hero kit. Now let's go take a look at some of the aspects, strategies, and we're going to start with aggression. All right, let's talk aggression strategies while we are restrained. So again, if we are restrained, I think taking advantage of the 3 thwart is super, super efficient and is probably one of the best directions to go. Keeping your Phoenix Force up and just using that as resource sparingly for what you need and when you need it. All right, so what would I do for this? Well, obviously, I would be running some high attack allies, because you then have a nice combination of both thwarting potential and physical damage. So allies like the Wasp, who requires some lightning that you can always get. Allies like Hulk, who could become a great defender, or if you can manipulate the top of your deck, you can find a way to use Hulk as an aggressive player. Allies like Thor, like Wolverine, and like Sentry. These are amazing allies that all have a base attack of 3, which means that they can pump out a lot of damage. Now, because you're an X-Men, you can also honorary them and make all these characters X-Men's. Wolverine, you don't really need to, but then you can attach cards like Attack Training to boost up their attacks even more, or even Enraged, where you can really go in all in on ally damage. Then you can obviously run a boot camp and even a war room to help with some threat removal, even though while your allies are doing damage to minions and mostly to the villain. So again, this is if you want to stay restrained, this is a great synergy that you can use to have your allies just destroy the villain while you control threat. Now, obviously, you can kind of go on to the other option as well. The very easy home technique with the either dive bomb, which just wipes everything out. So your allies can still just focus on the villain, and then you can just run in the home technique with the dive bomb to just clear all the minions as they come along. Or you can even use the Psychic Assault. That is another great psionic card that has the psionic trait, and that deals 3 damage to an enemy, and then you confuse, so it allows you to go to Alter Ego, refill that Phoenix Force. So this is some great card synergy for aggressive, but still being able to remove threat and still going, you know, on a longer route. So a villain that's going to be more difficult, a longer villain that has more complications that you can't just beat down real fast. Well, this is going to be a good long-term strategy for you to control what needs to be controlled and then going down. Now let's go check out what we can do when we go on the opposite side, which is Unleashed. One thing that I forgot to mention while you're restrained, well, even if you want to flip out on the last turn, you know, while you have all your allies set up with the enrages and everything, and you put honorary X-Men on everyone, go for a final kill with a team strike and just remove this, go to Unleashed, and then just unleash a devastating attack, because this one divides the damage between all the characters. All your allies don't take any consequential damage when you use this. This is a great finisher for that restrained strategy. If Unleash is the way you want to go in aggression, well, there's not a lot of super cool synergies that you can find, except that all her kit is already going to be extra eventful and extra effects. So what you want to do is you just want to focus on those type of effects to just amplify the damage output. So cards like Skill Strike, when you make your basic attacks of 3, you can bring it up to 5, which is really good. You can add cards like the Surprise Attack. They're going to synergize well with cards like Psychic Assault. So those 2 cards combine really well together. 3 of these and 3 of these. So you'll be able to at least get the timing off once or twice during your game. Normally you should be able to use a Psychic Assault, flip down, flip back up, Surprise Attack. Not worry about the villain scheming because he is confused. It's very good. If you happen to get your aerial trait with your costume, all the pitchbacks are an easy include. If not, they can always trigger other cards that you need for the physical payoff. If you again, physical payoffs with drop kicks, again, keeping control of the villain, it's going to be included in your kit. So you with the Phoenix Force being unleashed, you should be able to not have any trouble getting the triggers. And again, you have ways to put other power counters there, so you can use these to trigger most of the things you need. Then if there's a heavy minion scenario, a couple of copies of Relentless Assault and Into the Fray. It's not bad to have in the deck, but I would probably just put 1 or 2 of each maximum. Just, it's in case there's minions that are problematic. But if it's only like if it's a scenario with only like 1 attack minions that don't have guard, then don't even bother with those. Just focus straight up to face on the villain. All right, let's continue with my favorite aspect, protection. All right, so in protection, if I'm going to be restrained, what do I want to do? Well, if I'm going to be restrained, I'm going to try to focus on being the best that I can be with my thwart of 3. And for this, I really, really enjoy True Grit. It is a card that we have not seen played a lot. It's in probably like 1% of decks. And this one, I think it came in the Gamora pack. I am trying to remember where that came out from. I'm 90% sure it was Gamora. So True Grit is one of those cards that says, after your hero defends against an enemy attack, remove the threat from a scheme equal to your hero's thwart. So you're basically doing what Protection wants to do, but now you get a payoff because especially with her thwart of 3, and if you're playing in multiplayer, she can bring it up to 4 if somebody gives you a heroic intuition or something. I think that's just insane value, and it's from any scheme. So you can just kind of block and just remove side schemes from the thing. So for me, I think it's really good. Now, you might be saying, well, Steve, well, that kind of sucks if I have to exhaust. You're right. So if you combine these types of cards with cards like Defiance that are defending but don't require you to exhaust your character to defend, it's even more powerful. And then other cards that kind of fit this bill is the Jump Flip and the Sidestep. These are all amazing cards that allow you to defend without defending. Now there's one more, and this is more in the align with the psionic trait, and this is more of a variable. If you have if you have multiple villains, this is a great card to include. If you want to go check out one of my videos with the Psylocke versus the tower defense scenario, and all I did was Psychic Misdirection, and that's all. All my attacks were from the villains. So I had the villains the entire game just killing each other. It was a beautiful game. You can find that in my my Phoenix playlist in Protection. I think yeah, it's got to be in there somewhere because I know I made a video about this and it was just beautiful. All right, so that is it. So again, now what do we have to pay off these cards? Adding the defensive energy and our Phoenix Force counters, make sure that we'll always have the kickers that we need, which is the lightning resources to be able to give the kicker the extra things. We can easily include Nerves of Steel in this deck build. Why? Because again, we're looking for the lightning resources, and that's amazing. So if we're going to be playing into like these defense, and so basically you're a defensive thwarter, you want to be able to still put in some damage. So the Flow Like Water is going to make sense because you're going to be running 9 defense events, maybe 12. So this is going to be an easy build. We're not really going for perfect damage or like perfect defense, but we are going for damage mitigation because we do know that she can just recover a whole bunch from her kit. So obviously, once in a while, we'll get the perfect defense. So the unflappable electrostatic armor is just adding damage to threat removal to protection. So this is a triple threat deck. And then now with the new card, Angel's Airy, which means every time you defend, you put a fatigue counter there. It doesn't matter. You can take 3-4 damage. It won't matter because you've defended 5, 6, 7, 8 times. You just flip down and just exhaust Angel's Airy and just recover all of your health. And then you can use your white room to add more power counters on the Phoenix Force. So these are really good. Here's another cool psionic card. I did forget to mention it. I just found it. I was holding on to it. I don't know why. That you can add to make this even better. It is the Psy Flail Strike. So again, this can also serve in a multiplayer deck where you can defend for somebody else by just saying after you defend against an enemy attack, you deal 3 damage to that enemy and you stun it. So in solo, it's great. It prevents the double attacks, which allows you to do more things during your turn. And in multiplayer, it also protects somebody else. So this is, like I said, it is a crazy deck that has all sorts of synergies that you can have fun with protection. So this is what I would recommend if you are going to be going restrained. And if you want to stay restrained, this type of strategy, and obviously you can add what you want, but this is going to give you a crazy amount of control, which is great what protection wants to do, and offensive capabilities and defensive and threat removal. So it's an all-in-one deck, which is amazing. On the Unleashed side of Phoenix in protection, I really want to focus on her suit that gives her the Retaliate, and I really want to focus on that aspect of her being able to just take hits and just being able to retaliate. Adding Dauntless to this mix gives her a Retaliate of 2 for every attack. So But you're like, well, Steve, that's only good if she has more health or equal to her amount of health. Of course, we're gonna look into that. So we're also gonna be looking into ways to make sure that she keeps that. So to make sure that she keeps that, cards like Perseverance, at least 2 or 3 copies in your deck is going to be crucial because of her other aspect cards, or signature cards. She can stun and confuse when she's unleashed, which means you can go down and then trigger this Perseverance when you flip back up, which is amazing. Other guys that can really help in this nature is going to be Polaris. When she comes in, you can just give the tough to our friend Phoenix. And if you can't, let's say you don't have, the timing is off or something like that, well, you do have some extra layers of protection. Armor is a great one to stall the villain while you set yourself up. Because sometimes, obviously, these little decks, they'll take a minute to set up. So having some allies that can defend for you twice while you set everything up, then you're golden. Because then it gives you kind of like 2 turns of just like, all right, I'm in, I'm ready, let's go. Allies like Nightcrawler who do the same thing. You can just bounce and prevent all the damage. Your Retaliate will still trigger off of that. And then if you have a lot of minions in the scenario, having Iceman on the field to just freeze those guys for 1 turn while you deal with them is just perfect. Now, Energy Barrier is another great way to keep those minions at bay, and also keeping, let's say you need that extra 1 defense, or you have that 1 attack, you're just like, oh, rats, that's going through, I'm going to lose my tough. That kind of sucks. But again, you also have that telekinetic shield. Don't forget, that's another way of, having your tough and keeping it. And you can just kind of almost keep it the entire game. If you play your cards right, you might be able to just like never lose your tough status card, which is great. And then obviously Ever Vigilance for extra readies and extra damage. So all these combined makes an Unleashed Phoenix very fun to play in a protection deck that doesn't really feel like protection. It really feels like an aggression deck in the protection aspect with a lot of control and a lot of damage. Now, the only weakness I would say to this deck is side schemes, because Ever Vigilant only removes from the main, and then if you are Unleashed, you are only going to be removing 1 threat with her ability. So you're going to be really needing like a Professor X or something like that to kind of go and get control on those side schemes. But aside from that, this is a very aggressive deck. So unless you're playing a specific scenario that has lots of threat, an aggressive protection deck should get you there. Here's a little bonus here that you can do: Karma and Mind Control. So if you're playing a scenario where you have these ginormous minions, and right now I think the biggest minions are in the Master Mold set. So do yourself a favor, have some fun, play Protection versus Master Mold, and let them drop those crazy big Sentinels. Have your Mind Control and have Karma, and just let those Sentinels wail on Master Mold. By far, probably the best duo that you can find with this, especially including the Psychic Misdirections, would just be too crazy. All right, let's move on. All right, time for some Justice synergies. All right, it kind of seems obvious with a thwart of 3 what to do with this character in Justice, and it just seems so natural. So yes, we are going to lean into this natural 3 thwart, and we're going to be obviously looking for cards that synergize into like, give us something to thwart. So one ways or another is a great addition, will give you some extra card draw, is amazing. But because she has so much thwart, she'll probably be lacking damage. So adding cards like Turn the Tide is going to add to your offensive capabilities in the Justice Aspect by remaining restrained. So you won't even have to go Unleashed. You'll have all the damage you need just by using what you do best, and that's thwarting. Cards like Brain over Brawn. After your hero makes a basic thwart, deal damage to an enemy equal to your hero's thwart. So that's super good because you can actually augment that to 4 with a Heroic Intuition. That's just amazing. And some of the new cards are coming out. I think it's the Specialist one in X23. And there's like, I can't forget what it is, the something Specialist, but it gives you an extra +1 thwart. So then you're up to 5. So you can do Brains over Brawn, 2 for 5 damage. It's amazing. And then you have cards like Pivotal Moment. There's no 2 damage to the villain. 5 if there's no threat on the main scheme. These are all, for Justice, extremely powerful. Because Justice doesn't have all of those cool events that can that deal a lot of damage. But this, with this kind of build with Phoenix, you have all the threat under control, which is what she wants to do. And then you can just take advantage of all the bonus effects of having no thwart on no scheme on the main. By thwarting, deal some damage. Remove the last threat, deal some damage. So there you go. So, and then one way or another, always have something to thwart. The multitasking, again, is a great card with her, because at one point you might not want to use your basic thwart for just like, oh, there's only one threat on that scheme, but I can't finish it otherwise. So adding a couple copies of multitasking is great, because you can just use a Phoenix Force counter to have the trigger. Then you have obviously the psychic manipulation. So that's great. You can go to Alter Ego and then not even be afraid. You can keep the main scheme down to 0. Oh, you want a scheme? Great. Go ahead and scheme. I'll even get rid of the natural threat that was put on by the scheme advancing naturally. And then you can just remove instead of putting on. I think this card is just fantastic. Other cards to kind of help in the synergy. If there's a lot of minions, Befuddle is a great card to add in a minion heavy scenario with this strategy, because then you can, well, obviously for 0 on that minion, you can punch for 4 because you use your thwart instead of your attack. So that's a great card. Overwatch is another one. If you're using some of these multiplayer campaigns and there's a lot of side schemes or there's a lot of schemes, you can just use the Overwatch as a great addition. Followed is another fantastic one that we haven't seen a lot played out, but Followed with this type of deck means there's a lot of potential for damage. I call that kind of like vigilante justice, where it's just basically events that kind of do all this kind of nonsense, which is great. Then you have chance encounters, obviously skilled investigator, to have go get some allies if you want to grab some strong allies in your deck. If you want to go fetch Scott Summers over and over to just add some counters, and then use that psychic rapport, that basic alliance card there, or teamwork card. And then finally, justice served, because obviously you're going to be removing a lot of threat, and this is a 1 cost ready when you need it. So remove the last threat from a scheme, great. Pay 1, get rid of it, discard it. 1 per player, obviously, so you have 2 in your deck, so you use it once, twice in the game, and it pays for itself, and it's an extra ready to do some more stuff. So this type of strategy for a restrained Phoenix is going to feel very aggressive, which is what I like, because it's basically, it's different from what you would see normally in Justice, and I think that's why it's a very nice way to go with by staying restrained, still managing to pack a punch. All right, now let's go see what she can do when she's unleashed. All right, being unleashed in Justice is tons of fun. Why? Because we can take advantage of this telepathic treachery. And again, we're going to be focusing on what we can do when the villain is confused. All right, and this is where we're going to be doing all of our work. We're going to be unleashed, so we're going to have an attack of 3. We're not going to worry too much about threat, but we are going to be very aggressive with our Justice cards. So telepathic trickery is one of our key cards. The other cards that are going to really work off of this are sonic rifles, concussive blows. This is all to get our payoff cards of making sure that the villain is confused. So if you have 2 guns and 3 concussive blows plus the 2, that's 7 chances of getting the villain confused. We also have Dazzler, so that's an 8 chance. So 8 chances in our deck for the villain to be confused is really good. All right, so what payoff cards are we going to have for that? We're going to have Float Like a Butterfly, which means when we make our basic attacks, we're not going to attack for 3, but we're going to attack for 4, because every instance of damage on a confused enemy is going to be +1. So there's some great cards that we can use to have some fun with that. Obviously, Scare Tactics is 1 for 4 damage instead of just 1 for 3. So that is one of the cards I really do appreciate with this. Now, we have cards like Cypher that allows us to draw more cards. So after he attacks and damages a confused enemy, draw a card. So this is some card draw in Justice. We don't see that too much. Again, we have to fight a confused enemy. So let's make sure that, you know, if the villain can't be confused, then maybe we can confuse some minions. We have Banshee that can synergize well as into this plan. All right, well, we have too many confuses in our hand. Well, what do? Well, we take advantage of that too. We use cards like Swift Retribution. I would say 1 or 2 in a deck is enough because, again, once you got him confused and you can confuse him again, yes, that extra 4 damage is great, but he's just losing that confusion. So for me, it's a good backup card for extra damage output in a Justice deck. Then obviously, because we are have a lot of control, using cards like Upside the Head, which is again from Psylocke, gives us a great way to, when we use a basic attack and damage an enemy, we confuse that enemy. But if he's already confused, now we get to stun. So now we have total control. So this really feels like a defensive deck because taking advantage of the Upside the Heads and all the ways to confuse, the villain is barely going to do anything against us, and we're just going to roll over that guy like there was no tomorrow. So great cards that synergize well here to make sure that we keep control on threat is cards like Multitasking and Clear the Area, because since the villain is mostly going to be confused, we're just going to have the natural threat going up, so maybe 1 or 2 per turn, and then within just some of our basic cards, our event cards, we can clear out that threat and still get our payoffs, which is really, really good. Again, if we see something that comes out that's a little bit better, a little bit bigger, a little bit nastier, we can include 1 or 2 copies of Lay Down the Law, because then we can always go down to Alter Ego, let the villain scheme, whatever. We have a Sonic Rifle ready for when we flip back up, and then we can do all these Lay Down the Laws and all these other cool things with this type of strategy. So again, being unleashed and taking advantage of what the character can do with her signature cards is something that I really like to showcase when I think about these deck builds. Now, again, you can mix and match this. You can do however you want, but this is just like a kind of like a guiding idea of like how you can kind of focus on some of the key cards to be able to be successful with this character. Now let's take a look at leadership, our final aspect, and then the basics. All right, time to dive into leadership. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of sexy cards in leadership that really synergize well with her, but there is a playstyle that I do appreciate. The only real card that we have for Psionics is the Psychic Kicker that readies an ally and gives it +2 thwart and +2 attack. So obviously I want to include that because it makes a lot of sense. So for me, again, I want to play into what her mechanic is. It doesn't really kind of work well with, it doesn't really matter if you're restrained or if you are unleashed for leadership. Like I said, it's a whatever you need, right? So this technically deals a lot of damage. So what you want to do is you want to spam out To Me My X-Men's, put an ally into play, and then have some fun with that ally using Psychic Kicker. So using it once with Psychic Kicker, readying the ally, giving it +2. So unfortunately, these, they won't stack. So you can't play all 3 to give it +6. It's just, yeah, it's not super good. All right. Then you have the Last Stands. So again, I love this here because technically you're giving an ally +5 for 2 cards, and an ally that you can cheat in for free. So you use a Phoenix Force, you look at the top 5, you put that ally down, you have a Psychic Kicker, but these can stack, so then you can combo off whatever the attack of the ally is for the X-Men. And there's a few X-Men that have 2 or 3 attack, so we're definitely going to be hoping to find one of those and then keep synergizing our loop. All right, so that once that's done, there's some great ways to be able to combo off with our things. We have the Med Lab. That now this won't work if you discard it, but it will work if he goes out from readying. So if you have 2 Psychic Kickers and then you use them back to back on the same ally, you can just put the ally under the med team or the med lab, and then when you come back out, you can, you know, replay them in from your alter ego. Uncanny X-Men is a great support for this strategy, giving your ally that +1, so allowing it to be exhausted or even allowing it to return to your hand at the end of turn. So I really enjoy that type of strategy, how we can play off of that. Now, I was thinking also of putting I forget the name of the card, but then I kind of voted out of it. The Star Sneak Attack from Star-Lord kind of works the same way. So you want to kind of cheat in your allies. But I found that when I was thinking about my deck, and if I had a couple of supports, X-Men stuff, I think if I'm running 3 of all these events, the Sneak Attack didn't really make the cut. So that's the reasoning. Why? Because I'm going to be adding some crazy allies. So the big one here is obviously Gentle, because he can attack for 3, but when he's attacking the boss, he takes 2 consequence damage. So again, he might be one of the guys that you want to just use the Psychic Kickers, and then the Last Stands on, and just, you know, because in 1 turn, he deals 3, then he readies, deals 5, and then can deal a possibility of 8. So that's pretty strong for a 1-cost card. So you pay 1, you cheat him in, you attack for 3, then attack for 8, so for a 2 costs, or a true 3 cost, do 11 damage. Yeah, it's pretty darn powerful. So for me, I think this is one of the sweet spot combos. Then you have Havoc that can do a little bit more damage depending on what the encounter deck is. So obviously, if you hit a 3 boost or a 4 boost, that is 6 damage, 8 damage. Now, the only thing is, Havoc might die on his first attack if you hit a 3 boost. That's why Uncanny X-Men is super important. Then we have Beast to go get resources and Pixie to bring them back. Now, for this strategy to work, obviously, it doesn't just work in leadership. You have to include the big allies in basics. So I was going to save these guys for later, but I think for the strategy, so the Colossus, who comes in with 3, you got the Long Shot, you have Angel, you have Professor X. So him, obviously, you're going to use him for thwarting and not for attacking. So for 5, you can even use him for attacking if you want. I just seeing Professor X getting punched in the face or punching somebody for a lot is pretty interesting to see. And then obviously Storm, who has the 2 attack, but her most valuable is on the thwart, where she can move stuff around. So there you go. So that is kind of the more unique strategy that I found with her that kind of works because of the Psychic Kicker, and not a lot of other characters can do it. But aside from that, you can also argue to play off the aerial traits on some of the characters. So that could be interesting as well. Air Supremacy and Flying Formation. These are 2 new cards. Well, one came out with Angel, the Flying Formation. This, I think, came out with Star-Lord, Air Supremacy. So these 2 cards, if you want to go into an aerial strategy, then you're not playing the Phoenix, you're just playing the leadership. So then that's not really what I wanted to do here. But again, it's a way to see the possibilities with this character. So I'm not going to do one for Unleashed here, because obviously there's no point. And then I'm going to talk about some of the basic cards that you want to see with this character. All right, let's go for basics. All right, so one of the best resources that we have in basics is the Power of the Mind. Now that is a great double resource for all cards psionic. So that pays off pretty much every event in her kit. The Psyblast, the Treacheries, and the Attacks. These are all great psionic cards. It also plays for her Mind Control upgrade. It pays for the Telekinetic Shield, the Mental Paralysis. So it pays for like 70% of her cards as a double resource. So that is crazy good. And that's so it's a possibility to have another double resource in her kit if you think that she needs more resources because you're going to be playing an expensive deck. Then I'll definitely add a couple of those to make it work. Now, again, the other synergies, again, this won't really matter if you are restrained or unleashed. This is just going to kind of add to some of the synergies that we talked about in the previous aspects, and then you'll think about some of the things that might fit, and you'll see like, oh shoot, this is really going to fit well with this strategy. This is going to fit well with this strategy, and then you don't add everything in basics, because then you just have yourself a basic deck, which I have nothing against, because basics is a very powerful non-aspect. All right, so let's keep going. So some of the new cards here, telekinesis and telepathy, also very, very good. Triggers really well with power of the mind. So they only cost 1 to put on the table, and then you can spend double resource to either remove 2 threat or to deal 2 damage. So that's good. Telepathy, if you're planning on going unleashed, is very good. Telekinesis, if you're planning on staying in restrained, is very good. And powers of the mind, well, that's just good naturally. The scimitar, regardless of what restrained or unleashed, this is always going to be 2 extra damage. Again, and it pays really well off of this card. All right, some of the cool events that you can do. If you are going to be playing with some upgrades on some of your allies, like in the aggression build, the game time might be a good option for you. It readies an ally and then heals 1 damage from it, so you can really maximize this damage with those allies. If you're going to be playing that leadership build, this shuffles allies back into your deck. So when you're going to be playing the to me, my X-Men, you could always cycle back some of the best X-Men cards that you have. The Mutant Education, of course, if you're going to be going in some of the deck builds where you want a Deck 10 Phoenix and you just want to see her signature events over and over, again, Mutant Education is going to be the one for you. So one of these 3 is going to be in one of the builds that you're going to do. It just depends which one. I don't think you need all 3. I think just the one is good. All right, what's cool about her is she has a couple of team-up cards. She has the one with her hubby Cyclops, and she has the one with Storm. So then, again, if you are including Storm in your deck, or if you are planning on playing Cyclops, and then you think that you need extra ready effects, that's really good. Same thing for Soul Sisters, if you want to just ready and heal up. So these are some good synergy cards here to go with that. All right, now let's take a look at some of the supports. Weapon X, again, if you're looking for a specific card, it's pretty good because it's going to find you an identity-specific card. So maybe at the beginning of the game, I wouldn't recommend playing this because you might discard some of the other cards that you might need to set up your deck. But once you've definitely gone through one of your deck once, this is a good card to be put out, so she can kind of, it dilutes your deck, and then it finds you the card that you need. So for me, it's a good idea. Cerebro, again, it depends on what you want to play. If you're going to be playing that Leadership X-Men deck, I don't think this is a good solution for you, because you want to have the X-Men come in from the top of your deck, not from your hand. So for me, Cerebro, it's a good option if you want to find the Professor X. If you want to find something, you just got to remember you have to be a mutant, so you have to play this card. These cards here, both of these cards, you must be an alter ego to trigger them. Moira McTaggart, obviously, when you flip to hero form, you get to draw cards. So depending on what strategy you're using, you might be flipping back and forth. Team building exercise, again, with all the psionic cards that are out, this is a great addition, plus X-Men, plus psionic, plus aerial. So team building, 1 or 2 copies in your deck is definitely not going to be too much. The X-Mansion and then Utopia, again, depending on the strategy you want to use. These are great additions to think about. X-Jet, again, another resource generator. If you don't think that the Phoenix Force is enough, X-Jet is always good, and you can always give it to somebody else as the X-Men trait. Now, again, if we're looking for resources but are a little bit cheaper that are going to help you out, X-Gene and Def Focus are going to help pay for some of those cards. So superpower cards, most of her cards are superpowers, if I remember correctly. Oh no, they're psionic. Oh yeah, that's right. She's the one. Oh wait, never mind. Forget Def Focus. It doesn't belong there. All right, so X-Gene is the cheaper alternative to the X-Jet, but it only pays for for her hero specific cards. And then we have Soaring Acrobatics from the Angel deck. Again, when she gets aerial, she gets that +1 thwart or that +1 attack whenever she deals. So whatever restrained or unleashed you are, it's going to give you the options. And I highly recommend the Symbiote suit. Why? It's just so strong with her. And then getting your base stats up by 1 and +10 hit points makes Phoenix a very bad girl. So that is it for this, guys. The strategies, and these are the complementary cards to go with this. So guys, all in all, Phoenix is a very versatile character that you can really have some fun with. Again, I really feel that you shine with her if you have a plan, if you want to be restrained, or if you want to be unleashed. And going in with that mentality, it's going to really flavor your game a little bit more, knowing that you're going to go to the game with an idea in mind. I'm going to flip her to restrained or